This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.
A practical prayer is a prayer that works.
These discussions between Reverend Bill Marchioni and Carol Lawrence dive into the details of how it works and how to work it.
Reverend Bill is a New Thought minister and the author of Practical Prayer for Real Results.
Your new life begins with a new thought.
Carol Lawrence is on a spiritual quest, finding the New Thought teaching after decades on the pulpit in 3 different traditional denominations.
I've got some questions.
Together, they're exploring the philosophy and activities that come together from many of the world's religions to create the practical spirituality that is New Thought.
Welcome to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchioni.
We're doing an episode, he repeated, of the Practical Prayer Podcast now, and we're going to reveal our process a little bit, or what sometimes is our process, because I have no idea what Carol's topic is going to be. We have intentionally not discussed it, and so and we kind of do the same thing all the time, but nobody really knows that we're doing it all the time. So this time, you know that I will be shooting from the hip and not basically, I didn't have an hour to think about what the answers are going to be. So on your mark, get set, whatever.
Well, first of all, you never have an hour. Even when I tell you, you only have a few minutes. And I love it because it always works. It always works. And it works. I love it because I think that's how spirit works for me in my world. It's very comfortable that way. So I am comfortable with ambiguity because I figure, it may be ambiguous to me, but spirit always knows where it's going and I'm flowing with that. So here's what's been on my mind. And let me tell you, give you the context around it, difference and diversity. And when you think about that, you think about male, female, race, and so forth. But it is so much more when you get beyond that, which those are hugely important. I recognize that. But it also crops up in different ways. And I went to a summit last week. And it was, there's a practice that I want to bring into my work. And I'm familiar with the practice, but I never thought of merging it. I do this here and I do this here. And right. I thought, let me see how that would work. And I didn't know anybody to ask. Okay, so the summit came up. Bingo, I'm going. And I want to get a feel for what this is. And it would be very different and diverse. And it was amazing because it was not, it's how it's supposed to be. Like you have podcasters, they are different. Everybody is different, yet so important, so excellent in what they do in their space. And I think sometimes when people think of diversity or difference, you think of, well, which is going to be better? Should it be this or should it be that? Another way to see it is to say all. Because, let me go God, which I usually end up doing anyway.
Okay, big picture.
God is in all of it. So however I assume or desire to express in my work this way, or I'm not looking to see whether it's better, it's me. It's God. And so God is at the summit just having a great time. And I'm seeing like, that's cool. And so it's like, I don't need approval. It's part of the tapestry of the whole beautiful thing. So I'm wondering if we could stretch to see things that way. It would just be so much, sounds so corny to say, so much nicer, but it would be so much more empowering for us as individuals to say, I'm bringing something that's different and it's not better or worse, it makes the whole better.
Yep.
Do you know?
Yeah. And of course, when you first used the magical word diversity, what that brought to my mind is the current attack on DEI, which our government is doing. And from what I can tell, the claim is that if there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion program going on, it means they're looking for people who are outside of a particular monolith. And because I'm allowed to talk smack about white men, I might as well. The current idea is that diversity, equity, and inclusion means that you're trying to find people who aren't white men. And the backlash now is, why would you hold something against white men and keep them from being able to participate? Which, of course, is nonsense. Diversity and the whole idea behind the diversity, equity, and inclusion program, and I don't use the abbreviation of DEI because that makes it seem like something other than what it is. Because if you have an objection to one of those words, if you object to diversity, or if you object to equity or inclusion, I don't want equity. Really? Do you want equity for yourself? Well, yeah. Okay, well, then let's skip that word. Inclusion. Do you want somebody to be excluded from life in America? Well, no. Okay, so we'll leave that. So then it becomes diversity. And have you noticed that there are lots of different kind of birds out in the world? Mm-hmm. And they're all eating different kinds of insects and seeds and stuff. And those insects are eating their different sort of thing. And that biodiversity gives our environment, our ecosystem, a lot of resilience because everything is working together and everything is feeding off of and supporting and and empowering everything else. So when I talk about diversity, that's the sort of thing that I'm thinking about. And if you have a sameness, if you say everything needs to be the same, then I think you've missed the point. And you and I both have a long history in Philadelphia. So I'll use the example of a cheesesteak. So somebody could say that the most important part of a diet is the protein. So what's the steak that you put in the cheesesteak? What kind of meat is that going to be? How are you going to cook it? It's going to be sirloin. It's going to be top, whatever. Mm-hmm. You can have the best beef in the world. How does it make a cheesesteak? People know the roll is magical. So if you start with the right roll, then you can make a perfect cheesesteak. But if you just have a roll, it's a roll. Same thing with cheese. Cheese whiz, provolone, you get to choose. But it's still not a cheesesteak unless you have that. So there's a lot that goes into making that happen. No, then don't get even started. People put vegetables on their cheesesteaks. I mean, they refer to them as onions and mushrooms and peppers. But it adds to the flavor and the overall experience of it. So just inherently, diversity is important. And to claim that we're just going to have beef, we're going to be a pork nation. People are only going to eat corn, never wheat. I mean, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And then insisting that you have to do the protein first. Well, I don't know. You can go to a lot of Italian food. It's like, nah, it's pasta forward. And protein is for flavoring. And it's not like one is better than the other. It's all just okay. And so when we start talking about difference and diversity, I think that that's where the richness in life comes from.
Absolutely. It's an opportunity to bring your best self, your 100%, whatever it is, to the table, but also to learn from or be inspired by another's gift and what they bring. It's very different. And I got that experience last week when I looked at what others were doing and how they were doing it. I thought, oh, that's interesting. And nobody was me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to be anybody else that I saw. And another thing was there was so much more than I knew because I had a limited view of how people express in this way. So when I entered in, I was like, oh, my goodness, and not for one second did I think, I wonder how many people have the idea that I have. It wasn't, it was like, oh my goodness, look at all of this. And I wonder, and the idea of wonder, I think I just got really carried away with the wonder because there were so many different things. Probably, I can't imagine there being this amount of people and only 3 ideas, and everybody's doing it 3 different ways. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, and I didn't even think for 1 minute that I didn't belong. I just thought, well, this is it, because there's so much difference. It's so much, and that kind of thing is my engine running. It's exciting to me because it's all God. And it makes me feel like, and this is just like, God is so smart. Look at this. Look at all these men. And guess what? This is just one event. Can you imagine others?
Yeah.
And I think that, and I don't know for sure because our nation is just in really utter confusion, the way it's going, and then trying to understand the why that's involved. But the one thing I know for sure is that there's an element of fear in there, and it's not hard to find. But that's part of the mix, no matter what. And fear, I could have been afraid because I want to try something new. I could have been afraid that it would come off weird or whatever. But then, I said, hold it, Carol, that is not new for you, so you'll be all right. Don't worry about that. It's just letting it be okay, letting it be. It's God. Don't worry. You're safe. Nothing's going to happen.
Yeah. Now, at this summit that you went to, people were talking about what they've done to be successful in their lane and sharing that with the people who were attending so that they could use that as input as they're developing their own program presentation approach or style. Mm-hmm. So and usually in those sorts of situations, the people who are on the panel or presenting or sharing their ideas aren't worried that the people in the audience are going to steal their idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's key. Because if I think that somebody is going to steal my idea as soon as I say it out loud, then I go into that, like you're saying, that fear mindset. I'm not going to talk about what it is that I'm doing. Whereas I know that even though Carol and I do very similar things, if I give her my best idea and she says, that's a great idea, I'm going to run with it, then we're going to be running with the same idea in 2 lanes. We're not competing with each other. And if somebody notices that we're both doing this, you say, hey, you're doing the same kind of thing. Isn't that great? It's a popular thing now.
Yeah, and we're all doing, when you get down to it, we're all doing the same thing. We're allowing, sort of God to just flow with whatever it is. As a matter of fact, I was on a live with somebody else. It was on somebody else's live, and they had the most incredible idea. Their idea was they created a past lives experience for people. So mine, they connected me with Hafiz, and it was Carol and Hafiz in her past life where he is. And then the first thing somebody said was, how is Hafiz going to get her into the tavern? And so it started out really, it was great because it's just, we have so many different ideas. And the live lasted 2 hours.
Wow.
Oh, what? And people were, it wasn't just 2 hours with me, by the way. I'm not that interesting. But, my story with Hafiz was that interesting in terms of this whole 2 hours. But the person that came up with that idea, she was so nervous and so insecure about it. It was a phenomenal idea. It was different. Nobody had ever tried it before.
That is awesome.
And, and I thought if we could just meet each other with that energy and that mindset, look at what she did. It was like she said, I gave her the idea just because I read Hafiz and have fun with that. She said, but then, and it ended up being like 6, 7 other people. So it grew really big just from one, okay, let me try.
Yeah.
And you know,
You're
so
talking
what are
about
we
difference
so
and
afraid of?
diversity. And as I'm hearing that story and hearing about a person who does a 2-hour live event, what's going through my mind is, I'm the guy who does God calls. That's 30 seconds. And I do 15-minute meditations, and long form is going to be a podcast, which is a half an hour. So could I do 2 hours? Yeah, I could, but it doesn't occur to me. So isn't it wonderful that there is a universe here where people who do a 2-hour program are part of it, because they can bring some richness and wonder and joy that way, and I don't have to do it myself, and you know, they don't have to shave their content down to 30 seconds, and it's all good.
Yeah, everybody brings their spark, their divine spark to the party. And the more the merrier, you can say. Why be afraid? And I do understand the fear element. I really do. When you think that maybe you're not going to be accepted or you're going to be the weirdo or whatever. And I even understand it on the other side where people are looking and thinking, you know, is that going to be different than mine and what's going to happen? I get all that because I think that's probably natural. But then let's just get to where the rubber meets the road. You know, let's just go to the God space. We're all here because of that. We are all expressing God. We're all, you know, a blueprint. We're all, the word I used to use, we are all manifestations of God's imagination. Is that wild or not? When you think
cool.
about, you said that you look in the mirror and it just kind of dispels everything. Because before you can look at somebody else and say, God's imagination over there, I look at me and say, you know, God, you could have done it better. You know, this is the best you could come up with. So it's just a different approach that makes everything sweeter. And when you think about what's going on in our country, and you talked about DEI, what do you want to live like that? You know, what fear has happened, has made itself real to you that caused, and we understand that. We get it. People have been displaced and now nobody, you know, I'm not going to go any further because it changes the energy of this podcast and I don't want to do that.
Amen.
Yeah. So that's my thought about difference and diversity. You know, I got a chance to walk right into it. And I went by myself, by the way. So I didn't have anybody to talk about what is this going to be like. I just like, all right, let's go for it because I know there's some answers that I want. Let's see if I get it.
Okay. And this was an in-person event? Or
Yeah.
it was interactive? Oh, so it was a live in the room event?
It was both. It
Okay.
was both.
Right.
So, yeah, and it was, I don't know. It was, did it take energy? Did it take courage to do it? I think anytime you want to do something different, it takes a little bit of courage,
Sure.
you know. So let's see, especially if you got a weird idea. That probably turns out to be not weird at all.
That's true. And actually, we're going to take a break. I'm going to make 2 observations. First, the first observation is that the Carol show looks completely different from outside Carol than it looks from inside Carol. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And the second one, as we're talking about diversity and difference, is how oneness and unity fits into all of that. And we'll talk about that after the break.
Learn to put practical prayer to work in your life. The steps are simple to learn and let you begin to get real results to create the life of your dreams immediately. Reverend Bill Marcione's widely acclaimed book, Practical Prayer for Real Results, gives you a clear summary of the New Thought principles behind practical prayer and the series of easy-to-understand steps found in the most effective prayers from religions and spiritual practices all over the world and throughout history. Practical prayer is not a replacement for your religion or practice. It's a technique to make the work you do in consciousness even more effective. The book includes 40 prayers on various topics that you can adapt as needed and use as your own. Practical Prayer for Real Results is available in paperback, Kindle, and audiobook on Amazon or at b-the-light.com. That's b-the-light.com.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marcioni.
We're having a conversation about difference and diversity, and as we were going into the break, I brought up the question about how that fits in with oneness and unity, which is mostly what we're talking about here, that there is one creative power that creates everything, and that includes each of us, and that one is expressing itself as all of its creation. So if it's only one, then where does the difference and diversity come from? And it's a trick question. And just as an example of how difference and diversity comes about from the oneness, I will turn, as I love to do, back to the fundamentals, the basics, in this case science, and the periodic table of elements. If you take anything in the known universe and you break it down into its component parts, it will be some combination of the 118 elements on the periodic table of elements. We are all those 118 elements, and we're not even all 118 of them. We're some subset of them because there's a lot of like artificial elements and radioactive stuff that only lasts a fraction of a second. That's on the top end of the periodic table. So 100 different elements that you combine together into all sorts of different things, and there we are. You take all of the people, currently 8 billion plus on the planet, all human, all having DNA, and the combinations that we have in our DNA is what makes it different. And they're common enough that we're all human, but it's different enough that we're different humans. And we're individualized. So my awareness is from over here, and Carol's awareness is from over there. And as you're watching or listening to the podcast, perhaps your consciousness is in a different spot, and then it looks different from where you are. And it's all one. It's not like Carol has her own table of elements that's personalized just for her. It's the same elements. It's the same one. It's the same creative power that created those elements, that created her, that created me, created all of us. And is there a reason for all of the diversity and the richness and the difference between people and between ideas and between perspectives? I got to figure that the infinite doesn't like do stuff on a whim. So yeah, there's got to be a reason for it. Now, you know what the reason is? The answer is no.
Initially.
The answer is no. You don't know what the reason is. Neither do I. We don't know what the reason is. We're not figuring out God. Because it can. That's enough for me.
But I got one reason, right?
Go ahead.
That's it.
Go for it.
It would be incredibly boring if it wasn't.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yeah.
It's wonderful to anthropomorphize God by saying God would be bored if we were less interesting.
We'd be bored.
Everything would be bored. That's right.
Yeah.
Before the Big Bang, there was this one solid, infinitely small, dense something. And then it started exploding and expanding and evolving and interacting upon itself. And after several million years, it actually created hydrogen, which is the first element. And it continued to go from there. And so there's more now. And they're interacting and combining amongst themselves to make things like cheesesteaks and me. A cheesesteak for me. That's an interesting idea. Sorry. But it's all the one, and it's just showing up in that different way. So it's happening because that's what makes it different than the creator and its creation. Without us, there is no creation. We're part of the creation. Mm-hmm. Do we make God complete? I got to figure God is going to be God anyway. We're an expression.
It's fresh. It's exciting. And when I used the word boring, I really meant that. I didn't even think about God being bored. I figured, the Spirit individuates itself, through each one of us. Look at what we've got. And it is to me exciting to be here. I often think about, let's just say the pandemic, for example. I had several colleagues who didn't make it through the pandemic, and then people have families and all of that. But I did. And I don't know the reason, I don't, that's too much for me. But there is such an appreciation and an excitement to still be here, to see so much change, technology, and not just technology, but people's reaction to the change is amazing. And often certain skill sets that I have are called upon because of those kinds of things. So I think the whole life thing is, we could play it small, but to see it on a bigger scale, it's so much more than you can imagine. And that's utterly fascinating to me. I can say something to somebody and they turn around and say, "You have helped me so much with this." And I'm thinking, really?
I said,
Okay.
What?
Yeah,
What you
what
get from
exactly?
that? I was just
Right.
I was just saying.
Yeah, or I walk away in amazement. But then there's a sense of gratitude that whatever I have, I'm still here. Something happened. I'm really glad about it. And what's that person going to do next? Because if, in fact, they did get their life back or whatever, they said, wonder what they're going to do with it. That would be interesting.
Yeah.
So it's huge to me. So diversity and difference is something to me to be excited about, not to be afraid of.
Yeah. Every once in a while, and this has happened mostly since I focused myself on spiritual pursuits. It didn't happen nearly so much when I was doing comedy or marketing or technology. Of people coming back and telling me a story much later about how their life was transformed, how something that I did or something that I said was transformational for them. And it would be a real ego trip to think, oh, I'm going to say something that's going to transform somebody's life right now. Thank goodness I never approach it that way. I just, when I have an opportunity to share or talk or teach, it's like, let me share what I know. Let me provide some insight. Let me listen to the people who I'm with, and maybe I'll say something that'll be helpful. And sometimes people will sit there and look up into the corner going, oh, I think I get it. In which case I have no idea what's going to happen. And other times those same people will come back, a week later or a year later or 5 years later and tell me about a story about how the pieces fit together for them in a new way. And what I did or said was instrumental in them having that new perspective. And that's what gives me the kick. That's what's uplifting for me. And that's the difference in diversity. It's like they were on a path and now they're on a different path. And they credit me, but I was just there participating, doing what I'm doing, sharing whatever it is that I have. And the change happened. And isn't that cool?
It is, because you can't make this stuff up. No matter how you plan it, you cannot make up. You don't know. There's so many dynamics at work, and you don't know how those dynamics are going to touch and get together and, what it's going to be like. So when you're with people and they say, you just bring your A game. That's what I call it. You just bring your best self, and not to orchestrate anything. That's a different thing, to not plan. I'm saying this, I'm doing that. I'm doing, plan it out, and there's no room for the magic. Just bring your A game, the best that you got. And if there's something that you don't know, you just don't know. Or you could get a download instantly. I leave that open. But if you take that away on any level, number one, it shuts out God. You're just not interested in any part of God except for yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's kind of boring, you know.
We don't want to be boring.
No, because think about it. We all have a circle of friends, associates. It may be big or small, whatever. But you just don't, you're not going to be with the same one person all the time, 24/7, every day for the rest of your life. That may be your significant other. You're excited. But, I was out to lunch with one of my friends a week or so ago. Was that the most interesting thing? It was just really interesting. And, real quick, we're about the same age. And she is extraordinarily fashion conscious and everything matched. She looked just perfect. And so I told her I'd pick her up, and I'm looking at her coming to the car and thinking, and then there's me. I had on my signature tights and sneaks and, whatever. And I thought, maybe I should go home and fix it up a little. Forget it. And it's just great. There's things about me that she admires. Probably not my particular outfits, but
maybe your fearlessness.
Well, who knows, right? Who knows?
It's none of your business.
I don't really, it was a great time. I looked at her walking to the car thinking, oh, she looks so pretty. She looks so nice. Oh, and I told her that, when she got in, I just told her how wonderful she looked. And she actually had a gift for me with an outfit of sorts in it.
Did she want you to change into it in the car before you went into where you were going?
No, she just said, I had this and I thought you might like it. And it was really nice. I would have never bought it for myself, but it was very pretty. And so on we go. And we're talking. And then that's when the magic happened. We share information and help each other grow. And we're doing a different thing, but sort of, it's all in spirituality and stuff like that and religion and whatever. But that's where the energy was, and if you take away the diversity, you take away that energy.
Yep.
Then
let's take another break. Yeah, let's take another break, and we will continue with practical prayer. And you already said what the topic is: bring your A game. Let's pray for that. Here's Reverend Bill letting you know that the Practical Prayer for Real Results class is now available on demand. That's right, you can take it at your own pace, anytime you want. All of the information is at bethelight.com. That's b-the-light.com. You know where to find that stuff. The class is 5 lessons, broken down into 18 modules, and you can take them at whatever pace is comfortable for you. As you work through the process, it starts out with the theory, goes into the practice, there are experiential activities and exercises, and at the end of the program, you will wind up with an understanding of how practical prayer works, and a practical prayer for yourself that will work to create transformation in your life. And as you know, it works for everything. Take a look at the class online at bethelight.com. There's a sample lesson so you can see how the class is going to work for you and then dive in. The great news is it's on sale now. You can register and save $20 off of the regular price. I'm looking forward to seeing you in class.
Welcome back to the Practical Prayer Podcast. I'm Carol, here with Reverend Dr. Bill Marchione.
We have been talking about difference and diversity and how this universe of oneness shows up in so many different ways, and the pros and cons of that, and the advisability of the diversity that exists, and the difference and the range of experience and possibility that exists in the universe. And I'm in favor. I vote yes. Nobody asked. And it's not going to change because I have an opinion. But one of the things that did come up is bring in your A game. When we're engaged in anything, and when we are bringing that unique combination of talents, skills, gifts, and perspectives that we have as expressions of the infinite, when we're bringing that to any given situation, we have the opportunity to half-ass it or phone it in, or bring our best self to it, to bring our A game.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is that it's different for everybody. Some people do the best that they can, and it is woefully inadequate by a lot of other people's standards, but that's what they're capable of. That's what they can bring in that particular circumstance. And when we get into judgment about somebody who is not able to bring their game to the level that other people expect, there's a lot of judgment. I found out in my early career when I wanted to direct live television shows. I was not good at it because I do not have the required skill set. I do not multitask well. And that's one of the things that's required for that job. So the mistake that I made was thinking that I could do that. And I could not. And it turns out I'm not a defective human. It turns out that my gifts, skills, abilities, talents, and perspectives are useful in different areas. And I've done okay with those. And the idea is, when we bring our A game, it's not just I'm going to do this and I'm going to knock it out of the park. It is I am going to open to the awareness of what is the best possibility for me, and then I'm going to focus all of my energy onto bringing success and joy and harmony and uplift into the world through that. And we each can do the same thing. And the best part is, if we don't know what our unique combination of gifts, skills, and talents is, if we don't know what our A game is, the infinite is willing to tell us. It gave us the gifts. It knows what they are. It has some ideas. And our opportunity is to shut up and listen. Instead of insisting, no, I'm going to be a television director, to say, what's the best use of my gifts and talents and skills? Let me open to a possibility. Let me open to the awareness of what might be that greatness, that divine love as me in my life. And it's different for everybody. But then the guidance is different for everybody. So the prayer is to turn away from the world around us and open to the awareness of that infinite creative power, that one divine presence, that one love that has been sharing itself since the beginning of time. God, spirit, nature, the creator, Big Bang, whatever it is that we call it, that one started with nothing but itself. That singularity, that oneness, that individual instance, divine itself. And it began expanding, exploding, creating. And everything that exists is that divine presence expressed in a different way. The scientists say it's the elements in the periodic table interacting together and recombining to create everything that exists, including life, including me, including each one who's listening to this. And the scriptural stories of there's darkness and void, and God said, let there be light, and there was light, and God said, let there be, and there is, and let there be, and there is. It's the same story. It is the same one now expressed in all of these different forms, including me and each one who is hearing this prayer. So I know that there is a unique combination of abilities, talents, skills, of perspectives, of understanding, of observances that allows each of us to shine that bright light of divine love, that one light of divine love, in a unique and personal and individualized way. Those gifts are inherent. They are the truth of what we are. And in any situation where it is not obvious what those gifts and talents and skills are, we can easily turn away from the world around us, open to that divine presence that abides within, and invite the infinite to guide us, to suggest to us, to whisper to us what those gifts and talents and skills are, to make clear and make known to us what the gift is that we bring to the world. And it need not be subtle, and it need not be mysterious. It's not like reading tea leaves. It is possible for the infinite to communicate in very clear, very obvious ways. So while we're at it, that's what I'm claiming. Clear and obvious understanding of that unique, rich, valuable gift that each one here is bringing to this experience of life. and an awareness and understanding of the way or ways that that gift can be used to bring more good and more joy and more love into the world. The demand upon the infinite to show me what is my A game. Allow me to understand how I can bring my best to this experience of life. How do I share my gifts and talents and skills in a way that brings more good into the world? And with that opening, with that request, with that invitation, the infinite is already answering. It is already making known these insights, these glimmers, these understandings, these knowings for each one within the sound of my voice. And love is unfolding. Love is unfolding, the gifts are being revealed, and that A game is being played. And I am grateful for it. I am grateful for this good. I am grateful to be able to speak this word of invitation and release it into that creative law. And I know it's creating this now. This good is underway. And I let it be. And so it is.
The Practical Prayer Podcast with Reverend Bill Marcioni and Carol Lawrence is a production of BeTheLight.com.
be-the-light.com,
where you can find more information about practical prayer for real results.
Our theme is by Music of Wisdom. You can learn about the spiritual community of New Thought Philadelphia with daily guided meditations,
Weekly celebrations of spirit,
and Reverend Bill's classes in practical spirituality
at newthoughtphilly.org.
This podcast is supported by listeners like you. We're grateful for your tax-deductible donation at newthoughtphilly.org or the link in the episode description.